So welcome everyone. It is 3:05. I always give 5 minutes grace for folks to jump on. My name is Arlene. Welcome to this webinar. I'm so happy that you've joined me today and that you're interested in learning more about our program. And I'm really thrilled that despite everything that's happening in the world today, you're still focused, and so many of you have shown interest in continuing to develop yourselves as child welfare leaders or develop your staff. So this is an informational webinar on the Minority Professional Leadership Development Program. And since that's such a long name, and that happens often where we get all mixed up, we call it MPLD. So a few housekeeping things to go over. All the lines are muted just because it's such a large group. I'll spend about 20 minutes talking about the program, and then we'll reserve about 10 minutes for questions. If you have any questions, please post them in the questions panel. You'll see there's a question panel there that you can post your questions. And Dallin, as you can see, is our outreach coordinator, and he is behind the scenes helping me today, so he'll be happy to address any technical issues. If you have any issues with your connection, you can reach out to Dallin directly through the chat panel. And just remember, if we don't get to all of your questions, I will make sure to follow up with you directly. My plan today is to give you an overview of our program, and I'll specifically go over the structure and the components. I'll provide with some information about demographics of our applicants and our participants, and I'll share some sample projects. And this year, I'm particularly excited because I get to share with you work from our alumni that graduated in 2019. And what's happened with them since the culmination of the first cohort. My hope is that you leave today with a better understanding of the program and what it looks like and where and how to apply. So let's start talking about our why. The overarching goal of the program is to promote professional leadership development of minorities in the adoption field. We know that children of color are overrepresented in the child welfare system, and we hope that this program will prepare minorities to evolve as transformational leaders, and we hope that it will open doors for minorities to have a seat at the table where decisions are being made about the children that look like us. We accept 16 fellows each year. This is a 12-month fellowship that provides participants with a rigorous, structured program that includes hands-on experience, exposure to national experts, mentorship, development of competencies, and a connection to a network of minority leaders throughout the country. We do accept staff that does not work in adoption, so even though it's focused on the adoption work, however, it's important to understand that the focus of the project is for adoption and guardianship, and so therefore the action research projects will be focused in adoption and guardianship work. It's also important to clarify that we are looking for applicants who work in child welfare specifically because the goal is to enhance the capacity of the child welfare system. Most of that work we know happens in the public agencies, but we also know that in a lot of jurisdictions, some of that work happens through private agencies, and so we've expanded our program to include both private and public child welfare staff. Sometimes we get applicants like therapists who do adoption-related therapy work. This is more specific for child welfare staff that are working in the child welfare system. The fellowship is started with a kickoff event that happens in Washington, D.C. This is a 3-day in-person event that's filled with intensive skill building and networking with prominent national child welfare leaders. You're also, of course, connecting with your cohort and with the MPLD team. The rest of the fellowship happens remotely through the coursework that you'll be engaged in, webinar series, and individual and group coaching sessions. The program then ends with a ceremony, a graduation ceremony, also in Washington, D.C. This is also a 3-day event, but here the fellows will have the opportunity to present their projects. So I'm going to dive into the specific components of this program, and I'm going to jump around this tree a little bit because in the next two slides I get into more specifics about the coursework and the alumni network. So I want to start with the Action Research Project, and now we call this the ARP. And I start with this because it's really the cornerstone of the fellowship. Each fellow is asked to identify a challenge that they are facing in their respective system, and through the ARP process, develop a plan on how they propose they will solve this challenge. The ARP really helps you learn a structured decision-making process that will not only help you complete the project, but it's an excellent framework that will help you move through your career. It really helps walk through the steps of what it means to look at information, assess that information, come up with a theory of change, go through a literature review to see whether the theory of change has some merit, and then put something in place to evaluate whether it made the difference that you were hoping to make. We use the structured decision-making process called Plan, Do, Study, Act. And one of the ways that we do this is through the work of Dr. Sherilyn Harrison. And I mention her because she's a crucial part of the project. She's a consultant with the project, and we work side by side. And she's an expert in the area of research and evaluation. And she really works closely with each fellow and guides them through this ARP process. Later in the presentation, I'll share some examples of projects. Now let's move on over to the mentor piece. Each fellow is asked to identify a mentor in their local agency. This mentor will work with the fellow on site. They also come to the kickoff and the graduation event, by the way. That's part of the expectation. The role of the mentor is to provide guidance and create opportunities, to open doors, to break down barriers that may get in the way of the project. We also hope that that mentor will help build a bridge to perhaps access to a higher level administration within the system, and many times they're the ones responsible for getting the fellow a seat at the table. Let's now jump over to the expert and individual guidance. So we deliver this portion of the project in three different ways. So you remember I talked about the intensive skill building that happens at the fellowship. So all of those presenters are national experts on child welfare, folks who are leaders nationally or who are commissioners within their child welfare systems in their state, and high-level experts. We also deliver it through a webinar series that we call Wednesday Webinar, where you'll learn much more specifically about this Plan, Do, Study, Act framework with Dr. Harrison. And we also bring on extra national experts who, depending on the need, right? So this month we have, in June coming up, we have a research expert that's done a significant amount of work on disproportionality in child welfare. So he's going to be our guest speaker at a Wednesday webinar. And then in September, we have someone who's worked in the policy area, both private and publicly, and is going to talk about how do we take the policy to the next level. And then the final way we deliver this expert individual guidance is through our coaching sessions. So the focus of my work with the fellows is with individual coaching through, and my focus is on leadership development. Dr. Harrison focuses specifically her coaching sessions with the ARP work. And then we also have access to someone who we call our super coach, and her name is Addie Williams. She's an attorney, she's a former CEO, and she has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience. And so oftentimes if there's an area where we feel we need that level of expertise to come in, we bring her onto the project. Now we'll dive into a little bit of the coursework. These are the 4 online courses that you'll be taking in the fellowship. We felt like these were the 4 critical areas and competencies that we wanted leaders to develop in child welfare. Our first course is focused on vast work on transformational leadership, and it's really the understanding of the difference between transactional leadership and transformational leadership, and understanding that in order to affect change, we need to become transformational. Our second course focuses on research and the importance of using research and data to make decisions, and how critical it is for leaders to use data to make those decisions. And I have to tell you, someone who was not crazy about research, it's very manageable material. Dr. Harrison, who actually wrote these courses, did a beautiful job at creating a very interactive way of learning, where you're receiving information, not just reading a ton of articles, but through videos and through different ways. We then move into the practice course, which is the practice of addressing disparities. And again, we see there how the practice decisions that we make every day in the field impact our families, our children, and continue to lead us towards more disproportionality and disparities in the system. And then we finally end the courses with the Policy Primer 101 course, where fellows will learn how policy impacts practice, how to write and interpret policy, but specifically how policy impacts disproportionality and disparity. Once fellows graduate, they are invited to join the Alumni Platform. This was something that was just developed at the end of 2019 when the first class graduated. And we use Slack, which is an online collaboration platform that's used in many agencies. And here, I don't know how well you can see the screenshot, but there's several channels. There's a channel for each class that graduates, and then there's an all alumni channel. So the collaboration continues, the connections continue, and the learning continues. We will host a mini webinar where, for example, the last one we did was on LinkedIn, on how you can advance your child welfare career through LinkedIn. All right, now I want to share a little bit about what participants and applicants look like in terms of demographics and geographical location. So our reach right now is everything you see in light blue are where applications have come from. Everything you see in dark blue are a representation of where the fellows exist from the previous cohort and from this current cohort. What's exciting about this is that we have definitely grown over the last year. And so, excuse me, in this cohort, we have a fellow from the Virgin Islands who is our first territory, and a fellow from a tribe, who is our first tribe from a nation of Potawatomi of Oklahoma. Here you can see a little bit more, just some demographics about our 2019 cohort. We break it down between ethnicity, gender, experience, and public-private sector. And really what we aim to do is have a balanced representation of both geographic location and all of these different factors. So I love talking about these projects. This is probably my favorite thing to talk about, because the work really that these fellows and the alumni now showed us at the graduation in 2019 was it was so inspiring to see how much work they did and what the future of our field is going to look like, and how diverse it will be, because these fellows really were preparing themselves to begin to affect change. And so in some of these screenshots, you'll see some of the topics. I'm not going to go into all of them, but, older youth adoption, kinship. Fellow talked about all the barriers that exist for families of color, diligent recruitment. And the one I do want to highlight is the one on Trauma 101. This is a kind of a special story because Thomas, the fellow from Nebraska, this is his project, and he shared his story of his own trauma history coming through the child welfare system, and the importance that understanding for families and staff to understand how trauma impacts children, and how that changes the way you interact with families and children. And so he developed what he calls the Trauma 101, Improving Trauma IQ. It was a one-day training for both staff and families. And his goal was to help increase the trauma IQ of those that are interacting and working with our children. Now you may ask, where are they now, right? What are these alumni doing now that the graduation, that the fellowship is over for them? Well, you can find Thomas being asked to be a keynote speaker at a child welfare conference in Louisiana, where he's going to be talking about his project and the importance of trauma work. Maricel from Massachusetts was given the Innovative Recruiter Award for her work with the faith-based community. And Ligia was invited to be a keynote speaker on transformational leadership shortly after graduation. And other ways are, other examples include doing webinars to networks like the Adoption Exchange Association, where just recently they hosted 3 of the fellows talking about their projects and how these are promising pilot programs that are coming in through the system. So, of course, like I said, there's so much I can say about the alumni and all of that they have accomplished and how much they've grown and learned from this process. But really, I thought it would be more impactful for you to read for yourself and see for yourself some of the words that they use to describe their experience. And so Maricel there at the top from Massachusetts, in her interview with the Adopt US Kids team, she talks about how she has a new family and a network of professionals that she can learn and share ideas from, and how much better understanding she has about disproportionality in child welfare. Shirley talks about how much confidence she gained through the process and how strong of a voice she developed as she was going through this process, and how now she feels empowered to make suggestions and create change. Shirley actually wrote an article and did some amazing work in her state. And so now that you are fired up and ready to jump in and be a part of this transformational work, I want to guide you to the the Adopt US Kids website, where there's a professional page. If you're not familiar with it, you should absolutely go there and visit it. There's a ton of resources and information there for you. There you can find our MPLD page. The application is there. And you can read, this is one of the first articles that was featured on the professional part of the website. And there's individual articles on a lot of the fellows that completed the coursework. There's another place that I want you to go to, which is the Adopt US Kids YouTube channel, and Dallin is going to be posting those links right in the chat box for you. In the YouTube channel, you will be able to see a MPLD promotional video that we have. It's about 2 minutes long. It just gives you a little synopsis. And then we have created a playlist of all of the presentations that happen at graduation, and they are posted on the Adopt US Kids YouTube channel, and you can hear the actual presentations of the fellows from 2019. So help us spread the word now that you have been informed and have more information about the program. In your handouts, you should have a one-page document that describes the project. You should have a small blurb that can be added to maybe your agency newsletter or sent through email. And of course, encourage your colleagues or apply yourself if you feel like this is the right fit for you. So I think we're right at 3:24. So because we started late, of course, we went a little bit over. I want to make sure that we address any questions. So I'm going to just look here. Hopefully I know how to do this. Okay. Will you be accepting applications in states that are already filled? Yes, yes. You know, we do try to diversify where we accept, you know, what fellows we accept, but if it's the right candidate and they fit the criteria well, then yes, we would not hesitate to accept somebody from the state that has already had a fellow in it. Dallin, I may need your help because it's hard for, I only see one question, and I don't know if there's only one question or if I can only see one. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, I can read them out to you if you'd like.
That would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Are the mentors expected to, oh, that went away. Are the mentors expected to be from a minority group as well?
They are not. They don't have to be from a minority group. The first cohort, a lot of them were, but the second cohort, I'm not sure why. It's kind of interesting that there was definitely a shift, but a lot of the mentors are minorities. They're not required. Obviously, they would have an understanding that's different, and so I would encourage it, but it's not required.
Okay. Do we need any references?
Yes, the application requires one reference letter. It can be from a colleague or a supervisor. It could be a professional colleague. It doesn't have to be a supervisor, but yes, you need a reference.
Okay. Can you please let us know how many applications you received for 2019?
Yes, we received about 50 applications in 2019 and about 54 in 2020.
Okay, and then the follow-up with that question was, I understand you have 16 spots?
That's correct.
Okay. Approximately how many people, so is 50 a usual application number for each year?
It seems that way. It seems like it's been an average of 45 to 55 applications.
Okay. And with the mentor attending the kickoff day and the 3-day graduation, do they need to be there for the entire time, for all of the days, or just for certain sections of the days?
Yes, they should really be there for the entire time. We have had exceptions where there was a mentor last year that actually switched jobs in the middle of the cohort, in the middle of the fellowship. So she made sure that she was there for her fellows presentation and for the graduation ceremony. Something like that we would look at on an individual basis. But especially for the kickoff, there's a lot of information and a lot of connecting and skill building and understanding of the program that happens in the kickoff event. That's important for the mentors to be a part of.
Okay. Is there a way to see a list of current fellows, and could we reach out to them for info on their experience?
Sure. Yeah, we could probably come up with that. I do have a list. I will just make a note of that question and reach out to you individually. I do want to make a note before we completely run out of time that due to this COVID-19 issue, we are looking at a potential contingency plan for what kickoff will look like in October. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen, but there is a possibility that it may not be able to happen in person and that we would have to do something later on in the year. That's all the information that I have, but I just want to mention that we're aware that may be problematic in October.
Okay. What level of educational degree do you need to have in order to apply?
A bachelor's degree.
Okay. And is the reading material diverse?
It is. It's definitely diverse. There's some, journal review articles, sort of academic graduate level material. There's websites, articles from websites, articles from, experts in the field, like, something from a company that's an expert in an area, especially like leadership stuff. So it's very diverse.
Okay. And do you only accept people of color from populations overrepresented in child welfare?
That's correct. The 3 areas that are overrepresented, Black, African American, Latino, Hispanic, or Native American. Those are the 3 areas that we're focused on.
Okay. And if I'm an ongoing DCF worker, would I still be able to apply?
Yes.
Okay. And then I can answer this next one. Yes, I will email the links out in the follow-up email, so I'll make sure that everyone has the links to the Professionals Hub and the videos that Arlene referenced. There's a question. You're welcome. Who pays for the travel?
That's all covered by the program.
Okay.
There's no cost to either yourself or the mentor.
And applications are accepted until June 8th, but when does the next cohort officially start?
The next cohort will start in October of 2020.
All right. There's a question about who approves the project.
Who approves the project? So as part of your application, you'll write an essay that talks about your project, and then we will have an individual meeting with you during kickoff to sort of tease out what you want to do. And there's an orientation where you'll get more information on how to kind of develop what we call a PICO, which is sort of the research question that you're trying to answer. So I don't know that there's an approval process. There's sort of a fine-tuning process.
Okay. And then what are you looking for in an applicant to be accepted? And do you have any guidance on writing the personal statement or essay?
We're looking for folks who are interested in systemic change, who are looking to grow and be ready to become transformational leaders, who have sort of the grit to challenge the system, because a lot of times that needs to happen. It's tricky, and there's a way to do that, but we want to make sure there's a commitment to systemic change. And I would say, in terms of your essay, think about being very clear about what your project is and why you want this to be your project, and then also to be clear in what you hope to gain out of the being part of the fellowship.
Okay. And I know we talked a little bit about costs, but it looks like there's another question. Are there any costs that the fellows would be expected to cover, or is everything covered?
Everything is covered, fully covered. There's no cost. The only thing that you have to give up is your time. So that's something that needs to be discussed with your agency. There is a form that your agency has to sign to approve you to participate, your supervisor, because you'll spend 3 days in DC at the kickoff, 3 days in DC at the end of the project, and then there's time that you'll need to do the coursework. Some agencies are flexible and let you do it during your workday. Some agencies don't, and so you would have to do it on your own time. So I would say the biggest cost to you is time. There is absolutely zero cost to you financially.
Okay. And can you tell us the average time commitment per week or per month that the mentor needs to devote to mentees?
The mentor. So you should be meeting with your mentor, initially weekly. Once you get started and you're kind of established a routine and you're kind of on your way, you can probably move to every other week. At minimum once a month, you should be meeting with your mentor. And then it depends, right? So during the data collection part of the project, if there's someone who's going to give you access to data, you're probably going to need to meet with them more often. So I think that kind of fluctuates depending on what you're working on and how much they need to guide you through that process.
Okay. We've got a few more questions. This one, do you think it's possible to balance this program if you're working and a full-time grad student? And can the coursework be done after traditional work hours?
The coursework can be done after traditional work hours whenever you want. I would say this would be a challenge for someone who's doing a graduate program. I would not recommend for you to participate in this fellowship if you're already in a graduate program and working full-time, especially in child welfare.
Okay. And then the last question that I see here, when will applicants receive notification if they were selected?
So the application will close in June. I think our timeline has us slated for beginning of August because we go through a review process of each application, and then we go through an interview. We select the top 25 applicants, do phone interviews, and then from those 25, we select 16. So that takes about 2 months. And so I would say beginning of August.
Okay. And I lied. That wasn't the last question. I think we actually already answered this one. Do you have multiple fellows from the same state?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all we've got right now.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being a part of this webinar. We are happy to answer any questions. You can reach out to me. If you go to adoptuskids.org/MPLD, there's an email address there where you can send questions directly to me and ask any follow-up. I'm always available to assist in any way that I can. Great. So, Dallin, we can wrap up or stop the recording at this point. Oh, there we go. And thank you very much for attending.